All right, everybody, we are here today with Dave from Juab High School, and Dave had some questions about taking a model, an existing model, and putting it into a dish. So let's go ahead and get to work. We're going to start by opening up Aspire, and our part size for this one is going to be 48 by 16 by 1.25 inches. So let's go ahead and make our X 48, our Y 16, and our thickness 1.25. Now from here, you can decide however you want to with your Z position and material over here, and of course your XY datum. I'm going to put mine on the top because I'm working on a carving from the top down, and I put my XY datum in the bottom left corner. But you can adjust this however you want. Let's say OK. Let's go ahead and bring in our ellipse. So we're going to start by clicking on our draw ellipse button. We're going to come to the center. I'm going to pull it out until it looks about where I want it. Okay, and now we'll bring in our model. So we're going to click on our import model, and we'll come down here to our covered wagon scene. All right, here's our scene. We'll go ahead and center it. And now let's shrink it down a little bit so we get more of the detail in our ellipse. Okay, now I don't want to have this top in here, and I don't want to have this bottom here. The sides I'm not worried about as much, so we're going to modify both the model just slightly and then the ellipse as well. So by holding down Shift, we can kind of pull it up towards a little closer, somewhere around right there. Okay, then we'll grab our ellipse, and once we've selected it, we can go back in and select our dry ellipse tool again. And in our X, we're just going to drop this to 35. Okay, now what that'll do is it'll keep the height about where we want it, and I'll just pull that in. All right, with our model in place and our ellipse built, now it's time to just start working on the dish and everything else. So we're going to go to our component over here, and this is level 1. We're going to insert a new level, click on level 2, and insert one more level. So now there are 3 levels. Our first level, level 1, we're going to rename to our art. And in this one's case, it's the whole covered wagon scene all in one. Makes it nice and easy. Level 2, we're going to rename this one. This one's going to be called Multiply. This is what we use to make sure that we get a nice transition between the top of the wood and our scene. And level 3, we're going to rename. This will be called the dish. Okay, let's start with our dish level. Back to our design tab. With this selected here, we're now going to go to our create a rounded shape button. In our profile, this is going to be the angle, and I'm going to come over here from degrees and switch it to inches. I'm going to say I want my profile height on 1.25 inches. We're going to go down probably about 3/4 of an inch. Okay, and I'm going to just go ahead and click on create. Yeah, that's going to make a nice dome right now. And then we're going to go to subtract. It's going to turn it into a dish. And we're going to call this one our dish. So we've now named our component that. Okay. All right, now our second thing we're going to do here is we're going to come up to our model, create a component, and we're going to create a zero plane. And what that's going to help us do is see the things that are above the zero. So you'll notice here that, for instance, his eye, most of his face, pretty much most everything is above that zero plane. So we need to now work on fixing that. Easiest way to do that is to turn off our art layer momentarily. So now we just have this nice dish here, and everything looks good. I'm going to take both of these. I'm going to right click and duplicate, and then we're going to drag those down into our multiply layer. Okay, now here's where it's going to get a little confusing. So if you need to pause, go slower, that's fine. I will try to step through this in a very sequential manner for us. First thing we do is we're going to click on the dish and turn that layer off. So we're just working with the multiply layer now. We're going to select dish 1. We're going to go down here to properties, and we're going to turn it back to an add. It's going to go back to the top. It's going to be a dome again. Okay. And that dome is going to go from 0 to 3/4 right now, and we're going to change that to a profile height of 1 inch. Okay, and we're going to hit apply. Okay, now what that's done now is that's changed this dish from 0 right here all the way up here to the dead center, it's going to be 1 inch high. And the neat thing about the way that this multiply tool works is once we click on this where it says multiply, right click here and go to combine mode and change it to multiply, then this whole layer disappears. Now, if you multiply anything by 1, it becomes the same number. So you multiply 2 times 1 is 2, 3 times 1 is 3. Now, if you multiply 0 times anything, it becomes 0. So we have all of this art right here. This is our covered wagon scene, and there's tons of stuff that was up above that 0 plane a minute ago. And now if you'll look, it's flattened it clean out. Now what's happened is where the 0 plane was, 0 times anything is 0. So all this stuff out here was times by 0, so it flattened to nothing. As it came into our dish, and that Z height became something more than 0. So 1 times 1/4 inch, for instance, equals 1/4 inch. Now, so when we turn on now our dish layer, we're going to have a nice piece that lays inside. Now we can look and see what else we have to do to fix this guy. We rotate it from the side, we're still too tall. And the height comes from our wagon seam. Now we said our total depth was 3/4 of an inch. So as we come over here to our properties here, we need to take our shape height, make it no more than 3/4 of an inch. And now everything will fit inside there, inside that 3/4. Now if later on you come back and you say, you know what, I like it, but I want to have a little more detail and a little more depth, we might come back here to our dish right here, okay, and we'll go to our properties here, and we might change that from 3/4 up to 7/8. Okay, that's going to make our dish a little deeper. Okay, when we do that, we can also come back to our covered wagon seam and do the same. We can match this one to 7/8 of an inch. That'll give us a little bit more detail, but still not let any portion of that model stand higher than the top of your material.